Well, on our week, a branch of psychology week that is introductory psychology, we move on to something called theories of personality. In some sense, this could be viewed as like the core of the course, or at least the defining stuff you want to explain. If you think about what psychologists do and use some stereotype of that, which probably isn't that bad, there's some concept of analyzing a person, answering questions like, what are people like? How did that person get that way? Is it possible for the person to change? The big picture questions of human nature are, in psychology, called questions about personality, the whole person, and how do people differ from one another. In the history of psychology, a disproportionate number of the biggest impact people are in the study of personality. The psychologists you've heard of before the class starts, Freud, are in this field of study. So what we're going to have is an overview of that after a preliminary discussion. Getting a lot of excitement here today. The preliminary discussion is to make sure we're all on the same page. The word personality has a certain meaning in psychology. It's not precisely the same as the meaning when you say the professor has no personality. So there is a meaning of the term in personality where people have a lot of personality. And we use the term kind of like charisma. That's not an unreasonable use of the term, but is not what the psychologist has in mind. What the psychologist has in mind is something more broad than the concept has a lot of personality. It's a little straightforward and boring, but then one has to sometimes spell the things out. The concept here is that people differ from one another in ways you can recognize. If I asked you to describe yourself and then describe somebody else, you wouldn't write the same thing for the two of you. Even before taking a psychology class, you can describe people, their emotional styles, the things they're interested in, the distinctive abilities and lack of abilities. These styles of behavior, and kind of simultaneously, whatever is going on in the mind, or brain, if you can do a biology of personality, that explains behavior, that stuff is personality. If I asked you to describe your personality, you might say, I'm very achievement-oriented, but anxious when I meet new people. You wouldn't say things like, I get really tired if I don't get enough sleep, because you know everybody gets tired when they don't get enough sleep, so you sort of rule that out. You probably wouldn't say, I'm really good at calculus, because you imagine that there's a world of abilities that are sheerly intellectual. So the way you already use the term, if somebody asks you to describe yourself and your personality, as you see when you start this chapter, there's a bunch of quotes that are from like the online dating sites where people describe their personality. Those people already have a pretty reasonable sense of what personality means. That distinctive qualities, and if you think about it, some psychology in your head that explains your distinctive qualities is what the psychologist means by personality. An oddity, but it's not that bad in psychology, is to the present day, there's more than one what they call theory of personality. Over the past, actually it's a long time now, 120 or so years, a few different people have developed broad-scale, big-picture theories of human nature that have, obviously a lot of people have done that, but that have been good enough, useful enough, drawn enough attention that they've sort of entered a group, the canon of personality theories. It's a little odd that there's more than one of them. If you take your chemistry class, it's unlikely they tell you, here are the 5 theories of the chemical bond. Don't know what happened there. Get out of there, your volume. Good. Oh, great, I've muted something. Hopefully I've demuted it. So you might ask yourself, well, in chemistry they don't have multiple theories. In evolution, they give you a Darwinian natural selection pretty much and don't bother to march through alternative theories. Why are we doing that, and where did these theories come from is not an unreasonable question, and I'm using that to structure the next whatever hour or so of the course. Historically, what happened is that the people who started these theories of personality started in different places. In one case, the person is a physician, Freud. In another case, the person is a university counselor. The second person who appear on the screen with a theory of personality at one point is no different than the university counselor who you would find in the student services building. In another case, it's people running psychology experiments. In another, it's people doing testing of individual differences, sitting in front of computers, running statistics. It's inherently the case that, in the fancy language of the sciences, these people have different original phenomena. They're observing different things, and the theories, first and foremost, focus on that thing. So the reason there's more than one theory here and in the book isn't really just that everybody's disagreeing and doesn't know anything, but more that people are beginning in a different place and developing expert knowledge of something. They're each developing expert knowledge of a slightly different something, and as a result, each of these theories provides some unique information that's not identical to what's provided in the other theories, and that's why it's not a crazy world to say, well, there's going to be 4 theories about the thing. Really, it's more like 4 perspectives on something so complex that it's hard to have one all-encompassing theory.